Hello everybody, it's Dan here from Dan's Fish, and I want to show you the top 5 fish that I think are just doing the best here in the warehouse today. And I've got a bonus 6 that I might show you as well. We'll see how it goes. I want to start with these though. These are the marriage kissing Miyuki Ricefish. These are an awesome Medaka Ricefish, just stunning. For a long time, my favorite Ricefish has been the Miyuki, because it has a bright stripe across the back that glows, and from the aquarium side it looks good, and especially outdoors in like a patio pond, it absolutely glows like neon from the top. And you know, when you have a pond outside, it's kind of nice to see the fish occasionally, and those fish do awesome in that setting. This has taken that fish and made it even better. The glowing section, that kind of neon bright section, extends down the body quite a bit more than in a standard Miyuki, and they have glowing little sparkles across the body as well, and they have long fins. The tail is nice and wide. The anal fin, the dorsal fin, and the tail fin get extensions. These are still a little young, but you can see the extensions starting to come in. I'll take the ISO down a little bit just so I have to artificially cut down their brightness by adjusting the camera, by making my camera a little darker. Otherwise they glow so much that it's hard to see the detail on them. But look how wide and big those tail fins are, and how long the others are, even on these, which aren't fully grown yet. These are good size, these are adults, but they have some developing to do. And the other thing I love about these is on the fins, the tail fin, the anal fin, and the dorsal fin, they have like this neon white edging. So they've got this beautiful, just bright coloration. These have taken over. The Miyuki, the Platinum Miyuki Ricefish is no longer my favorite Ricefish. Now it's this, the marriage kissing Medaka Ricefish, just because it's even brighter. Like, it's even prettier. These are doing awesome for this. We're done with quarantine. I don't think we lost a single one during quarantine. They came in good shape. And also, we medicate during quarantine to make sure that there aren't any issues. In fact, real quick to show you, this is 2 of the things we use. We use this from Fritz. This has in it praziquantel and metronidazole. We use both those medications very frequently when we quarantine. And the other thing that we use is an antibiotic. We use a different one, but I think this one, Maricin from Fritz, the reason I think that that's cool is because it's a lot safer to use at home as a hobbyist. This treats gram-positive bacteria, and the bacteria in your aquarium that you're trying, the beneficial bacteria, the nitrophine bacteria that breaks down the waste and makes the cycle work, that is gram-negative. So far, from what I understand, talking to a lot of people that have used Maricin for a long time, erythromycin is the name of the active ingredient, it doesn't seem to crash the biological filter of an aquarium. So makes it a lot safer to use than some of the other antibiotics out there. And we also use a formalin-based product, like an eques product. So these 3 really help. Now this was made famous by Aquarium Co-op. It's called the Aquarium Co-op Trio, erythromycin. It's technically 2 medications in one here, a Paracleanse or something like General Cure, something like that, that has prazi and metro in it. And eques, that was kind of made famous by them, but I had my doubts, and so I spent over a year, and I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars, running a laboratory to see what the best medications were. We spent all that time, and we, don't worry, we'll get back to fish in a second, but I got a rant coming on. We spent all that time diagnosing all the diseases that came in with the fish when they were imported. We broke them down by the most common diseases, and we broke that down by the medications that would cure them. And guess what? Corey, we pretty much landed where Aquarium Co-op landed. So I could have saved a bunch of time and money and just trusted that, but I needed to know for myself. That's kind of how we are here. So anyway, and probably super dark too. So let's look at the fish again. So anyway, that's what we use to get fish through quarantine. And by the way, this food is awesome. Let's feed some. So I'm going to feed the Easy Community floating pellets today in the Magic Small Fish feed. The ones I'm going to feed these Ricefish are the community pellets. And I like these because they don't make a big mess. I'm going to put a bunch in there because there's a bunch of fish in here. They don't make a huge mess, and they're pretty water stable. So I like flakes and other foods like that as well. But you know how flakes kind of, if they aren't eaten pretty soon, they might fall apart and kind of make this fine powder in the tank that's really hard to clean up. These pellets don't do that. So that's why I like, well, there's so many fish up there blocking the light that I have to increase the ISO a bit here. I'm gonna make the camera a little brighter so we can see a little better. But anyway, yeah, the food's just neater than a flake food. And it's a good size for a Ricefish. So we've been feeding them this and they've been doing great. They're fat and sassy and doing awesome. So that's number one. That is the marriage kissing Miyuki Ricefish. And I'm gonna list this entire tank's worth by the time you see this video. So we'll have, I think there's 600 in here. So we'll list just slightly less than that, I guess. Maybe we'll list 400 to start. But yeah, an awesome, amazing Ricefish. Now let's take my feeding cart here and we're gonna go down the warehouse a little ways, and I wanna show you the next fish that I think is super cool. It's these. Okay, let me get my ladder, hang on. Okay, getting set up here. Okay, these. Now, celestial pearl Danios aren't necessarily a rare aquarium fish, but I want you to look at the condition of our celestial pearl Danios. Look at, if you look at the heads, they're not angular because they're not starving. They have good, what I call head fat. The head's nice and rounded above the eyeballs and right back before the dorsal fin. That's an indication that the fish has been eating really well and had the proper nutrition. The other thing is, if you look at the bellies, they're not pinched. So again, CPD's not the rarest fish, but finding them in good shape can be rare. This is one that unfortunately the supply chain just treats horribly. And so there's a few suppliers that do a good job and get fish that we can buy from that get fish in good condition, but a lot of the fish on the market just aren't great. So not rare, but I'm really proud of how these look. They're starting to color up really nicely. They're through quarantine. They're ready to go. And yeah, I really like this. So let's feed these guys. These guys, I like to give this Magic Small Fish feed from Aquarium Co-op because it's tiny. And the other thing I like about it is it creates this kind of this cloud throughout the water column. So it disperses throughout the water column. There's a lot of fish that don't necessarily want to eat at the very top of the water column or at the very bottom of the water column. They're more comfortable kind of mid-range. Now these have been trained, because we also do feed flake foods and other foods. So these are often will go to the top to start eating, but naturally CPDs want to feed kind of in the middle of the water column. If they get too high, a bird might pick them off. If they get too low, there's predators lurking down in that mold. There's dragonfly larvae and stuff like that. So they like it to be kind of free floating like it is right here. So that food, the Magic Small Fish feed from Aquarium Co-op, is great for these. We also feed it to chili reservoirs. We feed it to all kinds of little nano fish that are more comfortable not being exposed. And by the way, I want you to notice something else cool about these CPDs. Even before I fed them, they were out, they were bold, they weren't hiding back in the corner. CPDs have a reputation for being shy, and they are shy when you only have a few of them. But if you have a large group of them, they come right out. Or if you have dither fish, they'll often come right out. So the key with CPDs, if you want to enjoy them and see them often, is make them comfortable by getting them in large groups or making sure there's other fish in there that indicate that it's safe to come out. And that really helps with their behavior. That makes them much more enjoyable. You don't ever want to get a fish and just like put it in your tank and then you never see it again. And that can happen with these if they aren't treated quite right. But if they're set up correctly, man, they're bold. Like these guys, look, they went to the top. They're like, more food? And they're right back. Like they're not scared when they're in big groups. Okay, few more, gotta take the cart. Let's go trundle across to the other side of the warehouse over here. It's a big warehouse. We have 478 tanks. I finally counted the other day. A lot of tanks here. And I have some awesome fish here that I want to show you. These are German blue rams. Like, I've seen rams. I know, I have too. But what's cool about these are aquarium bred and raised here in the United States by hobbyists. We've just had such a hard time sourcing healthy rams consistently from the normal supply chain, from the normal industry supply chain. And so we've kind of just stopped, and now we buy from hobbyists. So there's some hobbyist breeders that have some really good ones and do a great job. And if you look at these, they're doing amazing. Oh, we got a little display going on here. Oh, she left. Oh, here comes another one. Like when they do this, that's what makes you fall in love with a ram right there. Look at that. See the kind of black spiky dorsal fin there? They're super pretty and hardy and healthy. So if you want healthy rams, I don't know of any way to get consistently healthy rams other than from hobbyist breeders. Everyone else just seems to have a lot of problems. So let's feed these guys. These guys really like the easy floating community pellet from Aquarium Co-op. It makes them fat and sassy like they are right now. And they love it. Again, I like it because it's clean. You feed this stuff and it doesn't make a big mess. Water stable foods are just such a treat, especially when you're used to when you're used to feeding stuff that makes a big mess, like flake foods and all that. If you switch to pellets and other foods like that, it'll kind of change your life if you're used to the messiness of those flake foods. Now, there's a place for flake foods. We still feed them. I'm not against them, but it's a lot easier to keep a tank clean this way. Okay, I'm gonna give them some more because they're already done that much. Let's get in there so you can really see them. I'm just so proud of these. I'm so happy to be able to offer fish that are this healthy. Okay, up above them is another fish I want to show you. Let's zoom out and go up here. Hang on, I gotta get my ladder ready. This has become, oops, my ladder is wobbly, there we go. This has become one of my favorites. And let me see if I can, I think that the camera brightness is probably good here. Hopefully those are coming out nicely. These are longfin cherry barbs. I've always liked longfin cherry barbs, but I've always kind of lamented the quality. Often they aren't that long finned, or the fins are kind of scraggly, or they have bent spines, or there's all these issues with the strains. But about, I don't know, it's been 8 months ago, something like that, a year maybe, I found a breeder in Europe, or source in Europe, that breeds these. And I've probably had a dozen batches now, a dozen different shipments from that source. And this is what they look like every time. They're consistent, they're beautiful, they've been bred for a really nice red color and also for good consistent finnage. So the long fin cherry barbs that we have here at Dan's Fish, I think I would put up against any others. I just think these are the best ones I've ever seen. And so I'm really happy about these too, and they're hardy, they're doing awesome. These I'm gonna give, I really like the Co-op foods, but I don't only feed the Co-op foods. I also like these. This is the Extreme Monster Pellet. And what I like about that when we're making video is this. So I usually feed these when I make videos. I don't necessarily feed them every day. I feed a lot of the Co-op foods, but for video, it's awesome because you put them in there And you get these little groups of fish around each pellet, and they just group up, and it's like an intense concentration of amazing long fin cherry barbs. So it's just really fun to see on video, I think. And the other thing I like is if you zoom out, it's like they make their own little weather patterns. They look like little tornadoes, each little group going across the aquarium. So I don't know, I just think they're kind of fun. These are Pseudomilgo furcata, the fork-tail blue-eye rainbow fish. This has been one of my favorites for over a decade. This is the first Pseudomilgo that I ever successfully bred and raised. What's amazing about these is not just their color and their awesomeness. These are about half grown. They're gonna get twice this big, and the color just gets more intense. That yellow on black, more intense as they grow. But as a fish breeder, which is, you know, my real hobby, what I really enjoy is breeding fish. It's just so fun. What amazed me about these is these little fish have bigger eggs than your big rainbow fish, like your Melanitania, your Chilothrina, your Glossolepis. And the babies were big and easy to raise. Their first food, baby brine shrimp right off the bat. With other rainbow fish, they're so small, the babies, even though the fish grow much bigger than these as adults, the babies, the eggs are so small that the babies are so small that they're just sometimes difficult, more difficult, I should say, to raise. The other thing I love about these is they're like cheerleaders. See these little pectoral fins on the side fins by the gills? They're tipped with this bright yellow to orange. And it just reminds me of the cheerleader waving pom-poms. So if you're having a bad day, it is hard to not be happy and delighted when you see these little fish just cheering you on. They're just waving their pom-poms saying, go, go Dan, go. So that's what I like about them. These, we like to feed the regular floating food. They'll eat the magic small fish feed as well, but we feed both. But the floating community pellets here, that is a good size for these. As you can see, fat and sassy and ready to go. So yeah, if you haven't tried breeding an egg layer yet, if you're like, I bred a couple guppies and maybe some platies and stuff, and I want to try breeding fish that lay eggs, kind of the next step in the fish breeding journey, as far as difficulty of hatching and raising the babies goes, these are not a bad one to start with, because the babies are so big when they first hatch that it makes it kind of easy. All right, so that's the top 5 fish here in the warehouse, but I am going to show you one more. I'm going to sneak in one more. It's Corydoras eques, and they are on fire. So let me show you these. They're down here. They're still only about half grown, but look at them. We'll jump up on the ladder in a second, but I'm afraid I'll startle them when I do that, so I want to give you a second to kind of look at them when I'm sneaking the camera over before I jump up there. Look at them. That orange, that peachy orange color contrasting with the blue is just, they've settled in enough in this aquarium, they've been here long enough that they're absolutely stunning. These blow my mind every time I come by and see them, every time I feed them. This is another one that, since they like sinking food, I'll give them some of the extreme monster pellets. In a group this size, we'll give like 6. So let's get that in there. Sorry, trying to open the lid. And it'll take them a second because I just startled them, but in just a second here, they're all gonna get all over that food. If I can stay still enough to not startle them. And you're gonna see Corey's doing what Corey's do. We're just getting very excited, getting all together in a happy group and pushing these soccer balls around the field. I call it fish rugby when they're all pushing the pellets around. One day I'm gonna set up little goals on each end of the aquarium, and whichever fish pushes a pellet through first, it will be the winner. That'll be fish rugby. or fish soccer, whatever. I don't know. Go the All Blacks if you know your rugby. But look at these. Now this is not an inexpensive fish. These are, I think they're about 80 bucks a piece. But we have found a breeder that does a great job. This is, again, probably our 12th shipment from that breeder. And every time they come in nice and healthy. It took me years to find a good source for these, forever. And I'm so glad I did. So if you want fish that look like this, or will look like this after they settle in your tank, sometimes it takes a couple weeks for fish to do that, then we've got them. They're here, and they're looking awesome. So that's Corydoras eques. So those are a few of the fish that are looking awesome as of right now. I just walked around the warehouse and was like, what's looking the best? I knew I was gonna show those marriage-kissing Miyuki Ricefish just because they've been blowing my mind. I got a small batch a little while ago. When Corey from Aquarium Co-op was here, he walked by that tank and he was like, what? Like, that's cool. When someone who has seen tons of fish comes by and they are as taken by a fish as I am, then I'm like, yep, I knew that was special. I knew that fish was something special. So I knew I was gonna show you those. But when I walked around earlier today to figure out what I wanted to show off, I didn't know quite what else was gonna make the cut, but I was trying to figure between those rams and those Corydoras eques, and I couldn't figure, which is why, had to sneak the 6th one in. Anyway, thanks for joining us on this video. We sell a bunch of fish at dansfish.com. That's how we make a living. So if you're in the market, please check us out. Consider us as an option. And until next time, I'll see you around. Bye-bye.